The Great Flood. It's one of those stories we all feel like we know, right? But what does the original text actually say to set up such a massive, world-changing event? Well, today we're going to dive right in and break down Genesis, chapter 6. Think of it as looking at the source code for the flood, to see exactly how this story of a world on the brink gets told.
So, before you can have a flood, the story has to lay the groundwork. It's got to give us the why. And Genesis 6 kicks things off by painting a very, very bleak picture of what the world had become.
I mean, wow, the text does not pull any punches here. This isn't just about a few bad people. This is a total condemnation. Just think about that phrasing for a second. Every imagination was only evil continually. The language is so absolute. It's describing a moral crisis that has pretty much reached a point of no return.
So, what did this corruption actually look like? Well, the text gives us a few key and kind of strange details. First, humanity is growing fast. Then we get this mysterious mention of sons of God taking daughters of men as wives, and their kids were giants? Now, scholars still debate what all that means, but the point is, it's presented as part of this complete breakdown of order, leading to a world that the text flat out calls corrupt and filled with violence. Okay, so with all this chaos and corruption happening on Earth, there's a reaction from the divine. But what's really interesting is that the text doesn't frame what happens next as some cold, calculated judgment. Instead, it's presented as something deeply, deeply emotional. Just let that sink in. Repented and grieved. These are profoundly human terms, right? The source uses them to describe this divine sorrow over how creation turned out. It's an incredibly powerful statement that really sets the stage for the immense gravity of what's about to unfold.
And that profound grief leads to an equally profound decision. It is stark, it is absolute. And notice, it's not just humanity. The plan is for a total reset, wiping the slate clean of every living thing on the ground and in the air.
But just when the story hits its absolute darkest point, with this verdict of total destruction hanging in the air, the entire narrative pivots on a single tiny word. But. Verse 8 says, "But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord." And just like that, suddenly there's an exception to the rule. So who is this guy, this one exception? The text gives us three key descriptions. He is a just man, so he's righteous and fair. He's perfect in his generations, which suggests he was basically blameless among the people of his time. And then maybe the most important part, Noah walked with God, which implies this really close personal relationship.
So you have this incredible split screen, right? On one side, you've got an entire world that's corrupt, violent, and just full of evil. And on the other side, you have this one single man, just, perfect, who walked with God and found grace. This contrast right here is the hinge upon which the entire future of humanity is about to turn.
Now, Noah doesn't just get a free pass from the destruction. Oh no, he gets an active role in his own survival. He receives a command, a blueprint for probably the most famous structure in all of human storytelling, the Ark. The instructions start with the building materials. The Ark has to be made of gopher wood, which, fun fact, scholars still debate what that actually was, and it needs to be waterproofed with pitch, which is basically a tar-like sealant for both the inside and the outside. You can tell right away this is a serious practical engineering command. And the text doesn't just say, "Hey, Noah, build a big boat." Not at all. It lays out a precise architectural plan. Verse 15, for example, gives the exact dimensions for a vessel on a truly monumental scale. The very first measurement we get is the length, 300 cubits. Now, that sounds like a big number, but what does it actually mean in terms that we can wrap our heads around today? So a cubit is an ancient unit of length, roughly the distance from your elbow to the tip of your middle finger. So when the text lays out the dimensions, 300 cubits long, 50 wide, and 30 high, we're talking about a ship that's about 450 feet long. To put that into perspective, that's longer than a football field and a half, and it stood over 4 stories tall. This was a truly massive undertaking. But for a ship that massive, the core design is surprisingly simple. The blueprint calls for that gopher wood structure to have 3 separate stories or decks, a single window up near the top, and just one door in the side. This thing was not built for comfort. It was built for function and survival, pure and simple. And who was this massive vessel for? Well, the passenger list is very specific. It was for Noah and his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth,
and their wives. That's 8 people in total. Then they had to bring 2 of every single kind of living thing, a male and a female. And of course, they had to pack all the food needed to sustain this entire floating ecosystem. Okay, so let's recap. We've got the problem, a world gone wrong. We have the divine regret. We have the one exception, Noah. And we have this incredibly detailed, and let's be honest, seemingly impossible construction project. So how does this chapter of the story wrap up? It all comes down to Noah's response. And that's it. That's the final sentence of the chapter. There are no questions recorded, no hesitation, just this simple, direct statement of complete obedience. In the face of a world-ending catastrophe and a monumental task, the response is just action. Thus did Noah. You know, the fascinating thing is, Genesis 6 doesn't end with the flood. It hasn't even started raining yet. It ends with the quiet resolve to start building in the face of annihilation. And it leaves us with a question that echoes way beyond this ancient text. When you're faced with a command that seems completely impossible, what does it truly take to just pick up the tools and begin?